We are back with another interview here on the Death Curse Club, and this is a big one. This is one that I am super excited about. He is a man that has made a film very integral about my horror life from when I was younger all the way to now, and there's so much happening with this said movie this year that I am excited to talk to the one, the only. We have Adam Marcus. Thank you, Adam Marcus, for coming
brother.
on.
My pleasure to be here, man. I love it.
Oh no, we are big fans of you, your movies. I can't believe you're here talking to me about Jason Goes to Hell and the future of said movie and a documentary that you have coming out. So I think what I want to ask you first here is like, is the fandom now like growing more and more into Jason Goes to Hell fans? Because the internet can be a-holes at one point, but I feel like there's a turn coming with this movie with its originality.
Thank you, brother. Thanks. To answer your question, quite simply, yes, that is everything you just said is factual. I will also tell you, it's interesting because I've had several people who, because the 4K just came out, there's been a lot of people reviewing sort of what happened back in the day to now. And it's amazing because when the film first hit theaters, we did not have this wave of hate. That was not what happened. And in fact, we were better reviewed than most of the Friday the 13th franchise from actual critical press. So we'd gotten a lot of push. We had an audience that, look, anybody who went to see the movie back in the day when it first came out, there was not one theater where the audience didn't leap from their seats at that last shot, right?
Right.
Also, there was not a theater where fans weren't cheering when Jason reemerged from the floorboards in Act 3. It is one of those films that had so many big moments in the theater of applause and laughter and craziness. And then right at not just the birth of the internet, but a little bit after the birth of the internet and into YouTube, there was this douche nozzle who made this video about how New Line killed the Friday the 13th franchise. And that video solely started a wave of anger towards this movie. And by the way, look, if people don't like the movie, awesome. That's fine. I'm great with people not liking the movie. No one's going to make a movie where everybody's happy, where everybody's thrilled about what you did, especially in our genre, especially with sequels.
Right.
It's a very tricky business, and people get a little crazy about it. Here's the thing. I made a movie that was radically different than the films that came before it. I also made a movie as a fan of the franchise, and I fucking hate when people actually try to say that I'm not a fan of the franchise. Like, bite me. Look, the guy who made Freddy versus Jason, he was not a fan of the franchise and went on to tell people that. Like, he had no problem saying it. I have been there since the first movie, literally been there since the first movie was made. Okay.
Right.
I'm in the room with Sean Cunningham when I'm 11 years old when he's making that movie. So this idea that I am not, bathed in the blood of Friday the 13th is nuts. Right. I made a movie as a fan of what I wanted to see in the franchise and how disrespected I had felt by the Paramount movies. I know. We're not allowed to say anything about the Paramount movies. Look, the truth be told, Sean Cunningham made the first movie. His protege made the next two because Steve Miner was Sean's protege.
Right.
Made the next two. Susan Cunningham, his wife, cut part 2, which is still, for my money, is the second best film in the franchise. And then the rest of the franchise was really Paramount's baby. Okay.
Right.
And look, by the time I got to the franchise, Jason had been killed. Had been a sackhead like the Elephant Man, then given a hockey mask in the middle of summer. He had been removed from the franchise entirely, and there was an imposter playing Jason. So when people talk about Jason being in a movie, Jason's not in that movie. He's not in that movie. Okay.
Right.
He's also only in the last 12 seconds of the first movie, for God's sakes. So then Jason was resurrected, God bless, by Tommy McLaughlin, and that is my favorite of all the Friday the 13th films.
Right.
He's resurrected Frankenstein style into a zombie murdering machine. Then they're so out of ideas at Paramount, so out of ideas, they went, what if he fought Carrie?
Yep.
So now we got a telekinetic versus zombie movie. Then I know it'll be Jason, the baddest villain in all of filmdom, versus the baddest city in the world, right? So we're going to put Jason versus New York. But in fact, Jason really doesn't get to New York until late in the film. He's on a boat for most of it. So it's Jason on a boat ride. And then he gets to Montreal.
Yeah. Montreal.
And 2 shots in New York. So, by the time I got to the franchise, I love how people think it's like this purist thing up till that point.
Yeah.
The timeline makes no sense. And let's be honest, from part 1 to part 2, talk about like really not making any sense. So I come in with this movie and go, you know what? Wouldn't it be fun if we actually like had some mythology around this? Wouldn't it be awesome if we actually get back to what Pamela was in the first movie and deal with her grief and her need to bring her son back? And what if she used the dark arts to do that? And what if we resurrect Jason as even more magical, which started with part 6? And now I'm taking that to the furthest degree, because I've always thought of Jason Goes to Hell as a sister film to part 6, to Lives. And for me, I was like, and let's make this movie more like The Thing than anything else. Like, The Thing is, to this day, one of my top 3 favorite horror films. And so I wanted to make, and I love when people are like, it's like The Hidden. It is like The Hidden, but I had never seen The Hidden up until that point. And here's what's crazy about The Hidden. I made the movie for New Line Cinema. New Line Cinema was created when Bob Shea, the guy who ran New Line Cinema when I was there, started working with Jack Shoulder as a filmmaker. Okay. So him and Jack Shoulder kind of created New Line together. All right. With things like, Alone in the Dark.
Right.
And Jack Shoulder made The Hidden for New Line. Now, never once, not one time in the entire time we were making this movie, did anyone, including Bob Shea, ever come up to me and go, this movie is a lot like The Hidden. Not one person who made the movie had anything to say to me about this, right? Not one person, not a heads up, nothing.
Right.
So I make this movie that for me is what is a tribute to John Carpenter and a tribute to The Thing.
Absolutely.
And people go like to The Hidden, and I'm like, all right, look, by the way, I agree. It's very much like The Hidden. I saw The Hidden after Jason Goes to Hell, and I was like, oh shit. Truly. Like, I was like, no one wanted to tell me that these were similar. Jack Shoulder, by the way, Jack Shoulder is very sweet because he says it's, I take it as an homage. I'm like, perfect, Jack. You go right ahead. But truth be told, I was trying to make a movie that was not just a Friday the 13th film, but a film for fans of the genre, because I'm such a fan of the genre. And it's why there's so many in-joke references. There's so many references to other filmmakers and other films. And people didn't do that back then. It was a rare thing that anybody mentioned another filmmaker. Like, it didn't happen. And so I really did steep the movie in all of this stuff. By the way, so much so that the next job I was offered, I was offered Pumpkinhead 2 right after Jason Goes to Hell, which that was the whole thing. But then I was offered Scary Movie, which was the original title of Scream.
Oh, wow.
That was the first movie I was offered. And I was offered it because they saw Jason Goes to Hell and went, wow, this guy is completely meta. Like this, he's already doing the stuff that's in this script. And then, of course, I heard Wes had read it and loved it and wanted to do it. I was like, I'm out. There's no way I'm beating Uncle Wes. That's not happening. But I got to tell you, it's it was not hated at the beginning. It was hated later on. It became this thing that was fun to be a bully to, I guess. And look, the big problem people have, they have 2 problems. One, not enough hockey mask. Okay, all right. Okay. By the way, we have more hockey mask in our movie than most of the other films
Right.
for screen time, right?
Right.
But the other thing, they didn't like the body hopping. Okay, cool. Both of those are complaints that I think I understand. I get where you're coming from. When
Mhm.
people say there's not enough Jason in the movie, I go, fuck you.
The whole movie's Jason.
The whole thing is Jason.
Yeah.
So you don't like that Jason's wearing other outfits, but you
Mhm.
love part 2, don't you?
Right. Right.
So, okay, so I'm sorry, Sophie. As long as it's just a big lumbering thing, then you're okay. Is that what it is?
Right.
Because you don't have a problem with Sackhead Jason. You don't have a
Mhm.
problem with hockey mask Jason. You sure as shit don't have a problem when they take the damn mask off and it's like Goonie Goo Goo Jason. So I don't really know what that issue is because it's not real.
Right.
If there are conceptual problems that you have with the movie, that's totally cool, and I'll take that on, man. And I will
Mhm.
take responsibility for it. I won't put that on Sean. I won't put that on anyone. Yes, did he tell me to get rid of the fucking hockey mask? He sure as shit did. He
Right.
sure as shit did because he hated the hockey mask. He thought it was stupid,
Right.
flat
Mm.
out, and
Mm.
said so. Said so.
Mhm.
He hated that Paramount wanted to make a part 2 that was about Jason Voorhees. He hated that idea. Didn't want to do it. That's why he
Right.
didn't direct the next movie. He
Right.
hated Sackhead Jason because he went, it's Elephant Man, the serial killer. What are you doing? And
Mhm.
when they brought up the hockey mask, he went, wow. And I thought the sack was stupid, literally, quote unquote.
Oh, wow.
So this is why the man didn't make any other films until my movie. And when
Right.
he decided to make it, look, one, he wanted to make a lot more money. And
Mhm.
two, he wanted to get rid of that hockey mask. He wanted to right the wrongs because look, Sean Cunningham never met an idea that John Carpenter had that he wouldn't steal.
Right.
So John Carpenter wanted to make Tales of Halloween. He didn't want to make Michael Myers movies. He wanted to make movies about Halloween.
Right.
Sean Cunningham went, ooh, that's really cool. I'm going to make movies about the unluckiest day of the year. And
Mhm.
that's how Friday the 13th was born. He
Right.
wasn't like, God, I'm going to make a series of films about this killer that's not the killer of my movie. It's a little boy in a lake and what?
Right.
So I understand his befuddlement over that. Absolutely.
Mhm.
My love of the genre of this slice of the genre was okay. How do we make Jason scary again? Like, what can we do to make Jason scary again? Because here's my problem with all horror sequels.
Mhm.
By the third movie, we are no longer cheering for the heroes. We are rooting with the villains.
Right. Absolutely.
You are just waiting for someone to get killed, and you can't wait to see how inventive the kill is, right?
Right.
And
Right.
it's why in subsequent chapters of all of these franchises, the characters get dopier and more one-dimensional all the way through.
Mhm.
It's the way these movies work. And they do that at the studio level. They sit around and talk about, don't make them too likable.
Mhm.
The final girl can be likable, sure, and maybe the boyfriend. That's it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everybody else has to be a cardboard cutout because
Mm.
the kids have to have a fun time when we murder them. Well, that's not a horror movie anymore. I mean, nobody watches the first Jaws and roots for the shark. Nobody.
Right. No. No, we don't.
So when you watch Friday 13th Part 1, Part 2, those are really scary movies, truly scary movies. And honestly, part 2 is almost like a rebirth of the franchise because it does become a new killer and the rest. When you look at Nightmare on Elm Street 1, terrifying. I mean, really terrifying, right? You look
Absolutely.
at Texas Chainsaw, you look at any of these movies, the killers are terrifying, and we see ourselves through the eyes of our lead characters. It's why the characters in most of these films in the first movies are the most interesting characters
Mhm.
because the filmmaker wasn't thinking about siding with the villain. The filmmaker is going, no, I want to side with my heroes so that when they get killed, we're upset as an audience. We're pissed.
Right.
Great. I wanted to do that again with Jason Goes to Hell. So it's like, okay, I'm going to rebirth the series the same way that part 2 did, or even that Tommy did to some degree with part 6, because you didn't know it was coming in part 6. Like you were like, holy shit,
No.
Jason's a zombie now. Now what's going to happen?
Mhm.
And so with Goes to Hell, I really wanted to do something that was unexpected. And so I had to get rid of the hockey mask. I wanted to do something scary. I wanted to make characters you cared about. I didn't want it to just be a couple of people you cared about and everybody else is disposable.
Mhm.
And look, moreover, I wanted to pay tribute. I was 21 when I was writing the screenplay. I was 23 when I directed the movie.
Right.
I wanted to pay tribute to everything that had come before me. I wanted to honor everyone I loved that
Mhm.
taught me how to be a filmmaker. So, Creighton Duke is an invention born out of the movie Jaws. He just is Quint. He is
He's cool.
Quint. He's the
Mhm.
same guy, right?
Mhm.
It's just
Right.
this beautiful, badass mofo who's playing the part. That's the difference,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just lucky enough to get Stephen Williams to agree to do it. But
So
dude,
good.
I mean, he literally says, I'll get you the mask, the machete, the whole damn thing. He says
That's
that
right.
line.
You're right.
I mean, we wore our references on our sleeve because I wasn't trying to hide it. I was trying to go, no, 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 no. I'm in this position because I learned from people smarter than me.
Mhm.
And I want to pay tribute to that. So, dude,
Mhm.
yeah, the wave of hate, it was a slow rising thing that happened more because of the internet and more because of YouTube. God
Right.
bless YouTube. I don't have anything against YouTube. It's great.
Right. Right.
And now what's happened is there's a ton of people who saw Jason as their first Jason. Jason Goes to Hell is their first Jason. It's their first Friday
Yes.
13th. Those folks would go back and look at the other movies and go, these are boring. Because they were used to
100%.
Jason Goes to Hell now. Now they were like, wait,
100%.
why isn't there more magical shit happening in this? Like,
Right.
why isn't there
Right.
more crazy shit? You know?
Right.
And look, I tried to take a pretty modernist view on everything in Jason Goes to Hell. I know that it rubs some people the wrong way. I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah. Right.
I made a movie that I am still proud of. And by the way, this movie that is so divisive, right? That
Mhm.
you got fans. Literally, there are fans who wish me cancer, okay,
Right.
over this movie, and I'm like, okay, you need some fucking professional help, my man.
Right.
Right? But this movie that is so divisive, it's funny. It just came out on 4K,
Right.
and the number of people buying it is staggering.
There it
And
is right there.
let's see, it was on VHS, and it was the biggest selling VHS that New Line had ever sold because they sold a rated and unrated copy. It was the first time that was ever done in 2 editions and the first printing, right?
Wow.
So every mom and pop shop had to buy both editions. They couldn't buy one, they had to buy 2.
Mhm.
Okay. Suddenly it doubled New Line's profits. Okay.
Mhm.
So there was a VHS, there was a laser disc at the same time. Then it
Mhm.
went to DVD. Then it went to Blu-ray in a shitty Blu-ray, 2 Blu-ray disc with that and X. Then it
Right.
got its own Blu-ray in the beautiful set from Scream Factory, and
Mhm.
now it's got a 4K. And here's what's incredible: the number of people who fucking hate this movie who own every single edition of the movie.
Every version.
It's amazing to me. Like, God, by
Right.
the way, God bless them. Like, I love you for it. First off, thank you. It's why I have a pool. And two, it's like, God bless you for actually being such a fan of this franchise that even a movie that pisses you off, you keep buying it, you keep watching it. That's
Right.
amazing to me. Like,
I-
you're the best. That's a real fan. I mean, that's a real fan.
Truly.
That said, the number of people who now really seem to regard the film as special.
Mhm.
By the way, I'm also always very respectful of anybody who comes at me and says, "Look, it's a great horror movie. It's a shitty Friday the 13th film." I go, "Cool. That's your opinion, and that's great. Like, that's
Mhm.
at least you're realizing. Wait a second, this movie has a lot going for it that I might not have recognized originally, or that I went, God, I wish this movie just didn't say Friday the 13th. I just wish it wasn't Jason, right?
Mhm.
But I love everything that was happening inside the movie. Well,
Mhm.
that's, again, I can't disregard or disrespect your opinion. I don't disrespect anybody's opinion. You can have your opinion. But
Right.
for me, when somebody comes at me that way, I go, yeah, can't argue with you.
Mhm.
Can't argue with you. If that's your feeling, I get it. For me, this is where I wanted the series to go. And by the way, for anybody who loves to go like, it's not canon, it's canon. So
Yeah.
everybody can cut it out with that shit. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Paramount films are not the only films. Stop it. Stop it.
Mhm.
Okay. You can have that crap in your mind. That's fine. But from the standpoint of the franchise and the way the franchise works, uh, Jason Goes to Hell and X
Mhm.
and Freddy versus Jason are all canon, kids.
Oh,
Sorry.
absolutely.
You know, I mean, my film was produced by the guy who directed the first movie, for God's sake.
Right. And what's really impressive to me
Mhm.
for again, it's the first 3 Friday the 13th I've ever seen. And how you've mentioned how the VHSs that came out
Mhm.
to the DVDs.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things, you are one of my first commentaries I ever heard.
Ah, that's awesome.
I listened to your commentary on the DVD, and it brought it to another. It's almost like how Kevin Smith is so
Yeah.
he's drawn to his movies, and he's always, and I feel you're in that same camp of,
Thank you, man.
I love the fact that you go out here and you promote this
Oh, yeah.
so much so you're a part of the new documentary
Mhm.
that's now, is this coming out this year to
Oh, yeah.
like, a
Yeah.
wider audience? I know
Yes.
you're traveling it
Yes, I
currently.
am. I'm touring with it right now. We're actually just about in a couple weeks from now. I'm going to be heading to Texas Frightmare, where we're
Yeah.
going to be doing the North American premiere of the movie. We've already premiered.
Mhm.
We did the world premiere in Glasgow at Fright Fest,
Yes.
which was amazing. It was
Oh, I
amazing.
bet.
Like,
I bet.
oh, dude, uh, I mean, Fright Fest is sort of my second home. Like that, they have
Mhm.
now become family with me.
Mhm.
And I did the UK premiere of Secret Santa there a few years ago, and
Very
they
nice.
have literally given me now a blank ticket. Any movie I make, they want to premiere,
That's
which is
awesome.
amazing. And look, by the way, I will always show up. Like I show up to festivals. Like I actually
Right.
pay the money to go fly somewhere and do that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, we're showing it at Frightmare. Then we we just got asked to be at the Ravenheart Festival in Norway. It'll be
Oh,
showing
wow.
there. It's going to be showing there on June 13th, on Friday the 13th.
Sick.
They're doing that. They're doing a Jason Goes to Hell and that double feature.
Ah,
Then on the same day, I'm going to be doing the LA premiere of the doc and Jason Goes to Hell. The 4K version of Jason Goes to Hell and the doc are both going to be shown at the Gardena Cinema in LA. So
wow.
that's the first showing in Los Angeles. And then there's a couple of drive-in spectaculars that are happening that I'm going to go do later this year. So I'm lining up all this stuff. There's a lot of fests that want the movie, so we're working that out right now.
Right.
But the movie will be out on Blu-ray in
Oh,
October. I
oh,
can't say from who yet because we're just finishing up the contract, but we're
gotcha.
that's happening.
Wow.
And that edition is going to be insane. I mean, it's insane. So the movie is it's a feature length film.
Mhm.
It's 111 minutes, I think, is the final running time on it.
Mhm.
And we are all incredibly proud of it. And look, as the producer of the movie, I demanded that we do a feature film. I was like, guys, look, I know we can do a 4-hour movie. Like, I got it. I got it.
Right.
We shot over 100 hours of footage on this movie.
Wow.
Yeah, 100 hours of interviews.
Wow.
And so I was like, look, I know we can do that movie. And for the people who love, Crystal Like Memories, they want to
Mhm.
sit there with a 4-hour, 5-hour movie. Like they love that shit. And so do I. That said, I let my audience know. I let when we were dealing with it on Indiegogo, when we were first, putting the movie together, I said,
Mhm.
guys, I am committed to making a feature film. This is a
Mhm.
professional feature film. This isn't a fan movie. This is
Right.
a feature documentary.
Right.
So we were committed to that. And Michael Felsher, who directed the film, was 100% behind that. And Eric Beetner, who cut the film, all of us, we had a plan. Like, this is what we're going to do. It's going to be under 2 hours so that it can be shown at festivals. So we can schedule it in movie theaters. Because again, I the number of docs now, dude, there's so many documentaries about films, about the
They
making
are.
of movies, but they're all just ending up streaming. Here's the
Yes.
thing. I fucking hate streaming. Now, by the
Okay.
way, I know it's our industry, and everything I've made is streaming. Everything I've made is out there.
Right. Right.
Here's the problem with streaming, and it's the thing that nobody seems to get, and I keep trying to preach it to people until they'll understand it.
Hmm.
Streaming is the death of filmmaking. Why?
Okay.
Because filmmakers can't make any money on streaming. We cannot make movies that don't make money.
Right.
When it comes to this film, when it comes to this documentary, not one person on production, not one of us has been paid a dime.
Hmm.
None of us have made money. We've worked tirelessly on this movie for 5 years.
Hmm.
5 years making this film.
Right. Right.
None of the producers on this movie made a penny. Now, you know, there are people who worked on the film in camera, in directing, in editing, in those jobs that got money up front. Absolutely, we pay the people that we work with.
Right.
But none of us took a dime.
Hmm.
You can't then turn around and tell my company, hey, by the way, yeah, we just want it. So put it out there and don't make any of the money back. By the way, I put my own money into this outside of
Hmm.
the Indiegogo fund, right?
Right.
Because I'm
Right.
like, look, we're going to finish this movie. We're going to finish it professionally. We didn't do in-house color timing on Da Vinci. We went to a sound house, to a color house. We had,
Right.
Anarchy Post in LA did an unbelievable job on this movie. It's gorgeous now, and it sounds incredible. They
Hmm.
did all that work. We paid for that work. So
Right.
here's the deal. I wanted a movie that was a professional film that would go to theaters because I think documentaries should go to theaters. I don't think they should just go straight to Netflix.
I
I
agree.
think or Shutter or Screenbox. And I love all these places. I get what their business model is. I get what they do. But there's no way for filmmakers to return on investment. It's impossible. So for
Right.
us to do that, we need to roll these movies out slowly. So it's
Hmm.
going into theaters. It's gonna do what festival run it can do,
Hmm.
and then it'll come to Blu-ray. Now, here's what's great about the Blu-ray. So once we go to streaming, you'll be able to see the 111-minute movie. Great, you'll get to see
Right.
that. Okay,
Right.
here's what you won't get. What we're doing on the disc, on the physical media, and I'm a big physical media guy. I think
Same.
it's the only way that I think it's the only way we're going to fix our industry is by going back to physical media.
Right.
On the physical media, you get the 4-hour movie
Okay.
because you get the full feature length film,
Hmm.
and then you get 13, of course, 13 mini movies, and
Mm.
then a ton of other extras. Okay.
Wow.
So you end up with over 4 hours of material on that disc
Right.
that all just contributes to the same subject. So it's not like we did a feature film that we did behind the scenes. No, this is all documentary footage. You get more behind the scenes stuff. You get more of everything.
Right.
And that was for me to go, great. For the fans who are real fans of this genre, who are real fans of these movies, they're gonna buy the physical media. They're gonna go out and do that. By the way,
Hmm.
anyone who bought the disc on the Indiegogo campaign got a fucking deal, man. Like they
Hmm.
got it for almost half price of what it's going to be to anybody else.
Right. Right.
And we did that on purpose. Like we knew how much this disc was going to be when it retailed. But
Mhm.
the thing is that I want to support not just myself as a filmmaker, but I want to support filmmaking in general. I got to tell you, dude, the number of festivals I've been to in the last, I don't know, 8 years,
Mhm.
where I'm sitting with young filmmakers, we're all talking about our movies and what we made. And I have people who have deals, who have put their movies out. The movies are streaming and they're hits on streaming. And I say, how much money you make? And they go, not a fucking dime.
Right.
And they go, well, that's unsustainable. How can we keep making movies if we can't support the filmmaking? I'm not talking about getting rich. That's some
Right.
bullshit.
Right.
Anybody who thinks that filmmakers are like we're rolling in dough. No, there's no. You can be a million other things and make more money than a filmmaker.
Right.
But if we're going to be able to continue doing this, you have to be able to make a decent living. Decent. Again, not
100%.
millions of dollars.
Right.
You know,
Right.
there's too many brilliant artists out there and young minds that want to get into filmmaking, and less are we able to say you can support yourself doing it.
Right. Well, it's like actors that you see out there because they only film one or two things a month, but the camera guy has got to work steadily every day.
That's
The
right.
writers have to make 3 to 4 different scripts a year, and God knows how long each one of those takes. So
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah,
That is
dude.
wild.
It's look, the number of people, even when you talk about actors, people have this perception that like they make a ton of money. They
Mhm.
make a really good living when they're working.
Right.
an actor works rarely. Like,
Right.
and I'm talking about actors that are successful work rarely.
Hmm.
You're off most of the time. So
Right.
what people don't take into account is the amount of auditioning they have to do, the amount
Hmm.
of classes they have to take, the amount of
Right.
headshots they have to do. Like the amount of money an actor puts out on a daily basis for their craft and for their work,
Hmm.
you don't make that back for years and years.
Right.
And when you start to make it back, it's amazing. It's like there's an audience like, oh, these people are making too much money. No, they're not. You're thinking of the top actor. Yeah, Brad Pitt makes a lot of money. By the way, Brad Pitt also is a hell of a producer and makes a lot of content
Yeah.
that most people don't even recognize he made. Have you seen Adolescent?
I have
The
not.
Oh, dude, it's so good. Oh my
I have
God,
not.
it's extraordinary. But
Hmm.
it's a British show, right? So it's a 4 hour
Hmm.
British show. And by the way, the first time I've ever seen the gimmick of one shot per episode
Oh,
work.
really?
It's the first time I've ever seen it work. I always think that thing. I always think whenever anybody goes, the entire movie is one shot. I'm like, well, then it's going to be boring as fuck because you just eliminated the whole process of what makes film interesting, which is editing.
Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah. Good
You
call.
are removing one of the only, there are only two arts that are purely cinematic, purely
Mm-hmm.
cinematography
Yeah.
and editing. That's it. All the rest of us can do our jobs in other arenas.
You're
But
right.
those
Right.
two
Right.
things are what make cinema. And you're literally taking half of the things away.
Right.
But Adolescence, wow, does it work? And again, the only reason that show exists is Brad Pitt.
Right. He
You
backed
know?
it and got
Right.
it out there.
Right. So
I know.
we never complain about a CEO who makes t-shirts and, is walking home with $10 million a year on bonuses. We get pissed off at a guy like Brad Pitt. What are we kidding? Like, I'm
Right.
sorry, you have way more entertainment from this dude than you have, right?
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
always this sort of us versus them thing with actors, which I never understand.
Hmm.
Anyway, we're off the subject. Here's the
No,
thing.
you're good.
This is I wave the flag of rolling out movies
Yeah.
in a way that creates a surge of people being excited about getting to the next part of it. So
Right.
streaming is not going to happen until next year. No way. No way.
Right.
Because I'm going to give the physical media time to breathe. I want that disc to have a chance to have a life. And then
Yeah.
we'll stream it. But
Yeah.
not until
I love that because again, I am a physical media guy and I
yeah.
want to be able to enjoy that disc and see things that other people aren't going to
Yeah.
unless if they get that. And then, like you said, the streaming gets there.
Mm-hmm.
My question for speaking of physical media,
Yeah.
the Arrowhead 4K, which
Yeah.
came out, did you get a chance to do anything new for that disc?
Yeah, I mean, I came in. Well, they asked me to come in and supervise the transfer so that we would clean up the color timing and the print and all that. But
Right.
I'm always baffled when they ask the director to come in and do that. Yes, the director should be there, but I
Mhm.
also go like, wouldn't you like the cinematographer there too, since they lit the movie? Like, wouldn't that be good? And they were like, well, I mean, do you talk to the? I'm like, yeah, he's one of my closest friends. Of course, yes,
Right.
I talk to the cinematographer of the movie. So I called Bill and I said, hey, you want to come in and do this? He's like, my God, you're the first person to actually ask me to do it. I was like, well, yeah, because it's
Right.
ridiculous. You should be there. And
Right.
so he and I went in, along with my remarkable wife and partner Deborah, and we sat there for days,
Wow.
color correcting the movie. And it is the single most beautiful version of this movie that's ever been put out there. It's gorgeous. Like the thing about Bill, William Dill, Bill Dill, who was my cinematographer, Bill was all of his background prior to my film was either in documentary movie making or documentary style movie making. Made an incredible movie called Sidewalk Stories, which was at Cannes a couple years before we worked together. But he was shooting for Robert Townsend and for the Wayans brothers before me. That's where he kind of cut his teeth on filmmaking. And the thing about Bill, and one of the reasons that I love working with him and loved his work, first we spoke exactly the same language.
Right.
He had no interest in shooting Jason Goes to Hell. No interest. It was like, you're going to send me on a fucking Friday the 13th movie. His agent was a friend of mine. That's the only reason Bill came in to meet with me, but he was pissed at his agent for setting the meeting. And again, also, I was a kid. Like, he didn't know how young I was yet, but I was a kid. I had a beard, so he didn't know quite how young I was, but he knew I was young.
Right.
We started talking about film, and we got to a moment where we both started talking about Orson Welles' Magnificent Ambersons. And he was like, you know the Magnificent Ambersons? It's like, it's a favorite of mine. He's like, really? And we brought up a thing in that very first meeting about that movie that we used in Jason Goes to Hell. It's in the whole film. There's an eye light that's used. That's very famously in Ambersons when one of the lead characters reads this letter. There's this light in her eyes that gets extinguished, but it's this tiny pinprick of light, and it's a very dark shot. You can almost only see the pinprick of light. We use that for every person who became Jason. And if you watch the movie, you'll see that in their eyes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And it was this idea of like, that's how we're following where he's going.
Right.
So it was just this visual gag. Here's the thing. The fact that we spoke for 3 hours on that first meeting. He was going to come meet me for 10 minutes, and he sat there for 3 hours. He walked down the hall to his agent's office, and he was supposed to shoot there was a Michael Jackson miniseries. It was on ABC. That was his job. Yeah, he gave up that job to do Jason Goes to Hell. Walked away from it. And here's the thing. Bill is an African-American cinematographer. And at that time, there were very few, and they never worked on white movies. They were never being hired. And so I didn't care what color he was, but because he shot so many movies with black actors, he understood how to shoot things, understanding the change between skin tones between black actors and white actors. Very few cinematographers were great at that back then, because all they ever did was lit white faces, right?
Right.
Well, the reason why my movie looks the way it looks, and why Creighton Duke looks as well lit as every other person in the shots with him, is because I had a cinematographer who understood how to light that. Moreover, he understood how to let things go black in the background. He knew how to take darkness to this place that I had never met a cinematographer who could get the black that he could get on screen. When you watch the 4K, dude, in the background of shots, which I wanted there to be this inky black in the background, like India ink black, that dark, right? Because I wanted you always worried about what's coming out of that. Even if nothing happened, I wanted you worried about that dark space behind you. What Bill and I did in this transfer is we finally, not since it was seen in the theater, we finally went back to those color choices, to what we did originally. And it looks amazing. I mean, it looks amazing. I mean, look, Bill is one of those guys, like, he has this amazing laugh, but he rarely uses it. And we hit certain shots in the movie, and I heard him giggle over to the side of me. I was like, dude, you are happy. He's like, yeah, it's the best thing. I'm like, there we go. There we go.
Oh, I love that.
So it's gorgeous. The movie's gorgeous. The other thing I will tell you is that all of the extras on the disc, all the new little short films, the one about Harry Manfredini and Bob Kurtzman and Julie Michaels, those are all directed by Michael Felsher, who directed the documentary.
Wow, really?
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
There's even a couple of shots that I gave Michael to use that that were behind the scenes footage from our film. Here's the thing. When we made when we were starting to make the documentary, we were getting all these incredible interviews with everybody, right? And the stuff was amazing.
Right.
But, Sean Cunningham was a cheap son of a bitch back then. And, well, he still is. That's my opinion. So Sean never met a dollar he didn't want to spend. He just doesn't want to spend any money. And so we didn't have anybody shooting behind the scenes on our film. There was no BTS. We were tiny. Jason Goes to Hell was made for less money than almost all the other sequels.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we made it for nothing, right?
Wow.
And by the way, to Sean's credit, I had 37 days to shoot that movie. It's the longest schedule I've ever had on any film. It was amazing. Like I was a kid in a candy store. I had so much time. That's because Sean's a great producer. He's an incredible line producer. He knows how to. Him and Debbie Hain Cass, who was the production manager on the movie, they really figured out how to make that all work. They also knew I was a first time filmmaker. It was like I was going to need the time to make it happen. Right. That said, we had no behind the scenes. So when I'm trying to make this doc, I'm thinking like, what are we going to do for behind the scenes stuff? Because you get in a tricky area with fair use when you're using photographs that were taken on set, right? It gets very tricky. So it's like, I don't know how we're gonna do this, because I mean, is it just gonna be talking heads the whole fucking movie? Like, that's just dull.
Right.
I am talking with Bob Kurtzman, who is to this day one of my best friends in the world, and I said this to him, and he said, "There's behind the scenes." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, we were shooting behind the scenes the whole time." I'm like, "What do you mean we?" He said, "K&B. We shot behind the scenes on every movie we ever worked on." I was like, "You're fucking kidding me." He's like, "No." He says, "Dude, I got like 6 hours of footage." I was like, "Oh my God." So it's like, "Can I please have that?" He says, "Yeah, give me $1 and it's yours. Like, we'll make it official."
Wow.
And so we got the only 6 hours of footage that was shot behind the scenes. By the way, there was a little bit more, which is interesting. So we get that footage, right? And so none of this has ever been seen before. You can see a couple shots in Michael's documentaries on the disc, on the 4K disc. You can see a couple little shots. Right? Okay. But we've got a ton in the documentary, like a ton of behind the scenes. It's the first time I've ever seen myself directing. Like, it's great. Like, I'm like, who the fuck is that kid? Like, that's nuts. Who's the kid with all the long hair? What is that about?
Flowing locks.
Right? I mean, seriously, it's a lot of hair.
Yeah.
And so I say, so we had that. Here's the other thing. There was a boyfriend of one of the actresses that came to set a lot, who illegally shot a bunch of behind the scenes stuff. Oh yeah. And I got that footage too.
You got that.
And I was like, "Hello." So we had, from a couple of crazy sources, we had all this like amazing footage. Right. And we shoved all of it into the doc. I mean, it's all there.
Wow.
But there's a little taste of it on that 4K. So no, look, the 4K is loaded. The only thing I'm a little sad about, because I was trying to make it happen, was I was trying to get a work print on the disc.
Oh, really? Okay.
And that didn't happen, which is a shame. I don't know what the legal wrangling over that was, but man, did I want that in there for the fans. Like, then you get to see all the crap that we had. Like, here's all. It's funny though, we could not find. I guess there is a 2-hour and like 13-minute version of the movie, which was the very first cut, which was boring as hell. God, it was so dull. But no one can find that cut. Warner Brothers has it, but they won't release it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So they do have that in the archives, but yeah, I mean, I'm almost afraid to see that cut, because God, it was bad cut.
My final question on the 4K: is there a new intro from the director?
God, I don't know if there is or not.
Oh no, I love the Scream Factory one.
You know what? They might. By the way, they might have recycled the Scream Factory one, because they did. Look, all the commentary I did specifically for Scream Factory, which was with Peter Bracke and I, that's on there. The original commentary with Dean Lorey and I is on there. Okay. Then there's a commentary track with Michael, the director of this, and Steve Barton, Uncle Creepy. They do a commentary together. That's a hoot. That's so good.
Oh man!
So I know there were 3 commentary tracks. I think they might have taken my intro from the Blu-ray and put it on this one. I think that's what they did.
That's a special thing. If you want to see, it's one of my favorite things I've ever seen. One of my favorite special features.
Thank you, brother. That's awesome, man. And it's funny, when I first shot that. I remember thinking, like, I called up the guy who was doing the special features on that disc, and I said, "Hey, listen, I don't want to come off like a dick. Do I come off like a dick?" And he's like, "No, it's really funny." I was like, "All right, as long as I'm not a dick, because I just like, that would suck. I don't want to be that guy."
No.
But honestly, it's just because dude, I've taken so much shit over this.
Right. And you keep championing it.
Yes, I do. Yes, I.
And that,
You know
and
what?
that's what.
But I don't think there's enough filmmakers who do. I
Right.
think there's too many filmmakers who lay down and die because people didn't like something. By the way,
Mhm.
listen, I understand when a filmmaker makes a movie and they go, "Oh, that is not the movie I wanted to make," like at all.
Mhm.
Is
Right.
Jason Goes to Hell the movie I wanted to make? Fuck yeah, it is. Fuck
Right.
yeah, it is. Do
Right.
I wish that I had more money to do more shit? Yes. Originally, I wanted the mask to start showing up underneath the skin of
Uh,
anyone who became Jason. As their body started to deteriorate, I wanted to see like the edges of the mask
right.
start to like, and the holes start to appear in their
Uh,
faces.
yeah.
But we didn't have the money. We just didn't have the money to do the effects, and there was no digital back then, so that was impossible.
Right.
But outside of that, no, man, that's no, sorry, that's the movie.
Right.
That's it. And I don't like when filmmakers don't stand by their work. Like, stand by it,
I
good or
agree.
bad. It's your kid. Look, you can have a kid, that's not all that bright. Um,
But
you
you still love them,
you
baby.
still better love that kid like the smart ones. Like, come on, come on. That's your special angel. Like, you got to love
Yep.
them.
Yep.
And
You can
I
pick out
think
the good points.
right, right. I
Mhm.
think that's really important. Look, there are films that I've worked on that, yes, they are not. Look, I mean, Deborah and I wrote Texas Chainsaw.
Right.
Um, they did
Look.
not shoot my script. Like, they shot something that's kind of like my script, but it ain't
Right.
my script.
Wow.
I never wrote "Do Your Thing," cuz like, no. Um, I never wrote a girl from Chicago telling someone in Texas, "Welcome to Texas, motherfucker." No, I did not write that. I
That wasn't
didn't
you.
put I didn't put a smartphone in a movie that took place in 1993. And you know why I know it took place in 1993? Because
Hmm.
in our screenplay, Jason Goes to Hell is playing at the local movie theater.
Oh
When
wow.
you pass the
What a
town square,
nod.
that's what's playing at the theater.
What a nod.
So I was like, no, we planted this movie firmly in a timeline,
Hmm.
and then production and the director just went, I don't care. Kids are stupid. The number of times I've heard that phrase.
Right.
Fans of these movies are idiots. Just put it in. They don't care. I'm like, no. The fans of genre films are among the smartest fans you're ever going to find, and they care more than anybody. The
Right.
only people that are more persnickety than horror fans are Star Wars fans.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
You know,
I can get behind that.
and the other thing that pisses me off though is that
Mhm.
what I find incredible. So people who love movies, film in general, right?
Right.
If you're a cinetiste, at least half the time, probably more, those people who love, art films and foreign films and great comedies and dramas, they don't love horror, right?
Right.
They're like, horror scares me. I'm not really into horror movies. Here's the thing about the horror fans. Horror audiences love all movies.
Yep.
So yes, is horror their genre? Is that where they feel most at home? Sure. But
Right.
they see everything.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the horror community. And that's where I come from. Like, I love all cinema. So
Right.
bring it on. I don't care what country it's from. I don't care. Just bring it.
You're right.
And we consume more film and more genres than any other fandom out there. And
Absolutely.
we're more open to it. We're simply more open to it.
We are. And yeah, like I was a fan of Nora. I'm a fan
Right.
of Jason Goes to Hell. I'm a
Right.
fan of The Substance. I
And
love it
guess
all.
what? There's a ton of people who love Nora and they turn their nose up at horror movies. And I just go, okay, well, you're cutting out a genre that,
Mhm.
quite frankly, is way more progressive and
Mhm.
way more interested in breaking down barriers than a Nora is. And I love a Nora. I think it's a terrific
Right.
film.
Right.
But I'm sorry, you actually think a Nora has more to say than Night of the Living Dead? You're wrong.
You're wrong.
Or Dawn of the Dead? You're
Right.
wrong. Like,
Right.
I'm sorry, the filmmakers that I grew up with, the people that I respect, the Wes Cravens, the Carpenters, the Romeros, especially, the Toby Hoopers. Toby Hooper, I hate when people don't get that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is about Vietnam. Like,
Mhm.
that's what we were going through at that point. No one was making movies about Vietnam because it was such an unpopular war. And this guy made a movie about what was being sent home after Vietnam.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so
Right.
again, I think the best thing about genre and why I love working in horror, why I adore it,
Mhm.
is because we can feed our audience more broccoli than anybody else because we cover it in 18 scoops of ice cream.
Right.
You still
Right.
get the broccoli, kids. You're still getting it. You know?
Oh my God, that's fantastic. What a
Yeah,
way to look at that. Oh
yeah,
my God,
yeah,
man.
dude.
Adam, I want to thank you for coming on to talk Jason Goes to Hell. 4K's out from Arrowhead right now. Look for Hearts of Darkness. It is coming soon. Physical media. Make sure you buy that physical media. And before I let you go, it's
Yeah.
a thing I do here. What is the perfect drink to have while watching Jason Goes to Hell?
Okay, here's the problem. Here's the issue.
Yeah.
You're gonna, yeah, and I might be the only fan that's ever, or the only guest that's ever said this to you. So I have never drank in my life.
Okay.
I've literally never had a drop of alcohol in my life. No alcohol, no drugs. By the way,
Good
I'm
for
also
you.
not I'm not a guy in a soapbox by any means.
Right.
I didn't have alcoholic parents. I'm not. It's none of that. I don't have any trauma over it.
Okay.
It is, and it's funny because the whole thing about The Thing and my
Mhm.
filmmaking in general, Jason Goes to Hell and Secret Santa most specifically,
Mhm.
is that the reason, and again, this is simply just my own thought on it, but I think it's true. The
Mhm.
reason I think I've never indulged in drinking and in drugs is because I have such a fear of loss of self,
Right.
which again, The Thing, that's literally all it's about, and or
Yeah.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So many horror films
Right.
go into that idea, and
Right.
so for me, my filmmaking is always reflecting that theme of like worry about loss of self.
Right.
Um, that said, um, God, Jason Goes to Hell. I would tell you, look, I mean, from a look standpoint, I think probably a tequila sunrise would probably be like just from the flame sort of
Just
idea of
the
it. I
flame.
think that's
Right.
kind of
Right.
great.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that might work.
I love it.
Um,
A tequila sunrise.
yeah, so I would throw it out there that way. Plus, the movie ends with a sunrise. That's sort of the
That
ending
it
of it. So
does.
so
That
there you go.
chef's kiss.
So there you go,
Adam, thank you for coming on, my friend.
dude. My pleasure.
Awesome.